Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 6 of the Ignite Your Life show. I'm Elisa Planellas, and I'm here with my co-host, Guillermo Vidal. Hi, Guillermo.
Hi, Elisa. How are you? So nice
I'm
to see you.
It's
You're
nice.
like our roving reporter. You're all over the place.
Yeah, well, I'm not telling anything about what's going on around. Atlanta was wild enough.
Good.
So,
Okay.
what's our topic for today?
So today's topic is well, they're always good. This one's one of my favorite ones, and it's that just because you believe a higher power is in charge of all things does not mean you're not responsible for your life.
Oh, man. Really? Why not?
Well, you still have to deal with everything that comes at you.
If I believe in a higher power, right, and I believe that that higher power created me, it must have created me like I am, right, with all my strengths, weaknesses, faults, and all dilemmas and
Right,
personality. So
right.
why can't I just assign all the blame off?
Well, exactly for the reason you just said. A higher power did give you all the skills, everything you need to handle everything that comes your way. But in order for you then to develop into the person you need to be, you were created to be, you got to deal with, you got to make the decisions, you got to take the risks, you got to do the things that will help you evolve. And so that higher power isn't going to do it for you. That,
Well, how?
that that that's my simple answer.
Oh, no, we're not gonna let it be at that. Because there's too many complexities in that. Where if the ultimate thing is that we have to take some responsibility. Oh no, we're not letting you off the hook that easy.
Okay. All right.
So
Well,
what?
so can I tell you a story then to illustrate my point?
Okay, go ahead.
It's called the parable of the flood. It's actually an old story. So this guy is caught in the roof of his house when waters are moving in, flooding his whole area. So he gets scared and he starts praying to God to save him. Right? So pretty soon, some guy comes in a rowboat, and stops and says, "Hey, jump in! I can save you." And our friend on top of the roof, he says, "No, no, no, thanks, but God's gonna save me. I've asked him." So then the guy goes away in the rowboat. So here, pretty soon comes a motorboat, and the guy in the motorboat yells, "Hey, come on, jump in! I can save you." And our guy in on top of the roof, even though the waters keep moving up, he's saying, "No, no, no, no. I asked God to save me, and He's going to do it. I have faith in Him." And then the guy goes away in the motorboat. Then here, before long, a helicopter hovers over the house, and the pilot yells, "Grab this line! I can save you!" And the guy says, "No, thanks. I pray to God, and God's going to save me. I have faith." And so the helicopter reluctantly moves away. Well, before long, the waters rise over the rooftop and the guy drowns and he goes to heaven. And when he gets to heaven, he finally gets a chance to talk to God and he goes, "My God, I believed in you. I prayed for you. I asked for your help and you let me drown. Why did you do that?" And God says, "I sent you a rowboat, a motorboat, and a helicopter. What else did you expect?" See, and that's what I think that where our responsibility is. Things still come our way, but we got to decide whether we take them or not. So I don't
Well,
know. Does that story illustrate the point?
it does. It does, but it also brings up questions because a lot of times, especially people who have strong, sentiments about right and wrong, or policies, procedures, and tradition, or things like that. That guy, he might have felt that those things that came weren't up to his standards, or they were, for example, he might have felt like, oh, I'm not supposed to maybe judge the person that's in the boat, that type of person,
Right.
that's in the boat, and say, I'm not supposed to go with you. You, I don't know, eat meat or pork or
Yeah, yeah.
you know. So there could have been all kinds of reasons why he would have looked at those options and said, that according to my religious beliefs, that could not have possibly been the solution for me, you know.
Wow.
It's interesting.
Well, but you make a good point, and I guess is, you know, we make our own shit up about what's right or wrong. I mean, there's no formula out there, so we all decide, or the group we belongs to decide. But that's our stuff. You know, in the story about the flood, God doesn't decide to send him a white man Christian like he was, so that he'd be sure to take it. The fact is that we have to make decisions for the things that are in front of us. And oftentimes we don't change, we don't make a different decision as long as those rules and regulations that you're talking about work. But when they stop working, that's when we often open the door to new solutions and new ideas. You know, and that's, I think, what we get asked to do in our lives all the time.
See, it sounds to me like the responsibility that we have is then a lot more deeper than we know. You know, it's
Right.
not just the responsibility to, you know, I guess care over our lives, but to the responsibility of discernment, you know, beyond sometimes the things that we seem to have been taught, you know.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good word, actually, discernment. That
Yeah.
is a responsibility. And you know, I don't think that I know, you know, people who believe in God and they say, I just turned it over to God. I just turned it over to God.
Yeah.
Well, okay, go ahead, but you're still going to have to go to work, and you know, money isn't going to appear at your front door all of a sudden, you know. So you still have to step forward and do the things that are necessary in your life. You know, so I think that believing that there's a higher power in control of things doesn't mean then that every time you need something, the clouds are going to part and some voice is going to tell you what to do. You know, that's just not going to happen. Or there's going to be a burning bush talking to you, or miracles where water turns into wine. That's just not what happens. You know, I don't know. What do you think?
The funny thing
Maybe you've
about
had
that,
those experiences.
absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna go back to your story for a
Okay.
minute. I'm gonna pick on it some more because the funny thing about that is, and like the example that you told, that the people say, "Oh, it'll, you know, God's going to have the solution." And the funny part about it was that they were right. He had the solution. The solution was right there, but they didn't have they in faith did not have enough faith to see that their prayers were being answered. And I kind of feel like when people pray and they feel like their prayers aren't answered, when they are, and they're just not seeing the answer, and so they're going, well, I'm gonna keep holding on long, you know, because that's the way it works, slow and long. So they don't see that the moment maybe they asked, it was right there providing for them, you know. So it's very interesting.
Well, but you know what? So what does it mean that your prayer got answered? You know, because so often the things that happen in life are not what you wanted, even when you prayed for them. So what does it mean that your prayers got answered?
I call it when a way is opened up. The way I see it, there's always a step. It's always a process. Life is a process. Yeah. So it either comes in a way, packaged in a way that you don't think that it's the answer. It doesn't seem logical that that would be the solution. Or it becomes, okay, you want to go here. Here's the route. Here's the pathway, and this is the first step. You know, to what you want. So either it's there immediately, and your own interpretation is just not allowing you to recognize the thing as the answer,
Right.
or it's like like if what I need is right around the corner out the door of this room, and I need to go open the door and then take that step because it's there, and I'm going, oh, but I don't see it. Oh, and you know, and I'm tired of going that way, and I don't know if I want to touch that there. It looks icky or something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Well, but you know, in my story though, the guy clearly had in mind that God was going to come down himself and bring some chariot and save him. So he missed all the options of being saved that God had sent to him.
You
So
know,
my conclusion to that is sometimes what we think we want and we pray for is not actually what we need. And it's not things that we should have, actually.
yeah. Oh my goodness, it doesn't matter when your prayers get answered. Sometimes, if it's not what you needed yet, you ask for it, you're going to get it anyway.
Yeah. Well, have you noticed, like for me, and again, since I'm older than you, for me, the worst times in my life have come as a result of a loss or a disappointment or, just a great failure. And, and I feel betrayed by God when that happens. I just feel like, where were you, God? I wanted these things. But then as I look back in life, what I realized is that those very things that were not what I wanted turned out to be the biggest blessings because they helped me develop into a better person. So my conclusion then about this, or my belief about having a higher power in control of everything, yes, I believe that's true. But I also feel like we're on this earth to evolve. So our lives are like a training program that we go every step of the way and we learn and we develop and we evolve. Sometimes we don't because we get angry that we don't get what we wanted, and then we get all angry and then we don't move from that anger. But when we do and we open our eyes, letting go of the old and looking at new possibilities, then we can develop. And I think that's how God answers our prayers. That was long-winded, but anyway, that's how I believe.
It's fantastic in my book, Guillermo, because one thing is that if a person is looking, we're talking about, our responsibility and where it is. And oftentimes, like if we don't see the answer, if we don't have that belief, that trust, that feeling, which I find that it is not rooted in any type of religion at all, but it is rooted in your self-esteem, that your desire, when you got it, that it's answered, and to take that action now, because if you're dealing with a spiritual realm with physical beings here, right? So while things are coming from spiritual, we still have to manually move through life. You got to
Yeah.
make your head, do your things, And so if you say, okay, like if you have a vision of who you want to be, and maybe it's not as far off as you think in life, but you just have to hold on to trust that you can get there. That because it's your desire, it's for you, and you can go and get it, and to make those maybe I'm saying make your actions be in line with your desire, and that is that to me, that's the definition of that responsibility.
I agree. What I find difficult for me is that my desires were often built on what other people wanted for me, and they weren't my true desires. And that's what had to come undone. That chasing everybody else's goals for me was actually making me unhappy, or was making me see life as things were good or bad, or I was a winner or a loser. But at the end of the day, that's not how it works, right? Because only one team can win the Super Bowl. Does that make the others losers? Maybe the others are
Yeah.
winners too. Well, in the material world, yes, but in the spiritual world, maybe handling that loss will make you improve in other aspects of your life, or even in that one, and that makes you stronger and makes you try harder. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, the team's not losers if they don't, because how many young, guys want to be athletes, and how many athletes want to get into pro, and how many pros want to get into the Super Bowl? That's a whole lot of success to be there.
Yeah, I agree that it's the trying. Several spiritual leaders say that what we really are spiritual beings that have come to this earth to have a bodily experience. And that
Yeah.
bodily experience is to help us evolve as spiritual beings. Where that makes sense to me is that everything that happens to us then has an opportunity to help us evolve spiritually. Winning or losing, it's how we interpret it. We might be disappointed in losing and happy in winning, but the fact is that there's no difference. They're both experiences that we have to process and evolve. And like you say, that's our responsibility. It's not God. It's not God to then all of a sudden show up. I mean, I don't believe there's a God up there that shows up. You know, he lives up in the sky and decides that we go to heaven or earth. I think it's that you've been given these tools to perceive, to think, to process, and then pick the higher road. And that's, I think, what our human journey is about.
Yeah. I think again, if outside forces, other people, society, religious rules are setting your desire for you, you don't feel like taking responsibility for it, or maybe even subconsciously. It's easier to blame the higher power because you say, well, you set all these rules and this is how you're saying I'm supposed to live my life, and this is all the society says I'm supposed to do. So since none of this is my responsibility,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want anyway, why do I need to take any responsibility to make it any better or to succeed? So if you set it all up for me, then you should put me into some great, riches and success. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
for that anyway.
Well, it's right. So does that mean only the rich are good beings and the rest of us are a bunch of losers? No.
Supposedly they're the ones that let it flow and they went along and all the great things put them into their position. you
Yeah,
know
I don't buy that.
you
I
know
don't
what
buy that.
I think that the rich are the ones that they set their desire. They don't let others set their desire for them. They set their desire, they set their standards, and then they take responsibility in living, up to those standards, and
Yeah.
trusting that desire is theirs, and living, according to that. Yeah.
Yeah. But, just because you're rich and famous doesn't mean you've reached the promised land. I mean, the comedian Jim Carrey, he has this great line. He says that he wishes everybody could find out what it's like to be rich and famous because then they would realize it doesn't mean anything at all. And
Yeah.
and I think that that's true. That in fact, a lot of the rich people I know, and I certainly have been exposed to them throughout my career. A lot of the rich people I know are the most miserably unhappy people I know, and they are prisoners of their own money because they're always concerned about losing it, or somebody wanting to steal them, or somebody wanting to hurt them. So
Oh my.
they have movies in their own house, they're bowling alleys because they don't want to go in public, or they have food from the greatest restaurants brought to their house. But imagine, I kind of like going out to restaurants and the bowling
Right.
alley and all of that. So it is a prison for them. So just because they have all the material things doesn't make them any happier or any more blessed by God than you and me.
Well, I think there's countless factors to that. I mean, not first of all, not every person that is wealthy gets wealthy the same way. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And even despite the means of how they became or are wealthy, it doesn't categorize their life around them. For example, a child could be born to a wealthy family, and that could be also a loving family. You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
raises
yeah,
them up.
yeah,
A child could be born to a wealthy family and they could be, well, I'm wealthy, I don't care about this kid.
yeah.
And so the person grows up wealthy, but then how happy are they? You know what I mean? What kind of love? So it really depends. It really does.
Well, I find, and I'm certainly not wealthy, but I find that I'm grateful for the struggles I've had in my life because
Mhm.
I can look back at them and realize how they shaped me, how they gave me, perseverance, the will to survive, the hang in there and keep trying kind of thing, strength, um, even wisdom. And so I'm happy for that. Sure, would it be nice that I could buy a new car every time I feel like it. Yeah. But you know what? That's a little thing. It's interesting because Sigmund Freud says a similar thing. He's like the father of modern psychology. And they asked him, who would you rather treat? Poor people or rich people? And he says, rich people by far. And asked him why. And he says, because poor people think that a couple of $1,000s will save them and solve their problems. Where rich people, they already know that not all the money, that you can have all the money in the world and it doesn't solve any of your problems. So it's funny that there is nothing in what the world sees as material success. Nothing at all. It doesn't make anybody else any happier than you or me.
Yeah. You know what? Because it's nothing, I think that those that want to should feel more like it's a possibility for them. A lot of people that aren't wealthy go, I wish, one day. And it's similar to the guy standing on the roof of the house. And maybe the greatest idea, greatest invention to mankind, greatest song, greatest thing is in their heart. And that thing would be the way for, to them to wealth. And they're going, oh, but if I play a song, nobody will listen to me. I'll just wait till, one day something will happen. And they've got all the talent, all the ability, and all the strategy to get, the standing that they want to get to.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? And sometimes a person dies with that wonderful song inside of them because they never had the courage to step out there and do it. So they're like the guy in the flood. They didn't step forward and take the opportunities because they were afraid to, because they didn't look like what they wanted. But so I think that at the end of the day, yes, the higher power is in charge of all things. But I also think this higher power created you and me and everyone else who's watching this, willfully created us. We're not an accident. We're willfully created with meaning and purpose that is unique to us. And I think the human journey is to find it, is for us to walk around our lives and find it. It's not for God to intervene every time we have a problem. It's for us to use those experiences to develop our highest self. That's a lot in that statement, but that's how I see it.
Well, Guillermo, today, that's our show for today. So it's been exciting experience because, I really would love to see people take more responsibility, and responsibility is not what we have been taught. Like it's just a bunch of hard work. You just show up, you know what I mean, on time.
Right.
You're supposed to be responsible, so never be 5 minutes late. Make sure you got all the these things covered. And it's not responsibility is not supposed to be a weighty burden. Responsibility, in my opinion, is supposed to be a joyful movement, a continuous movement towards that which you want, in confidence of knowing that it's for you, and just taking those actions along with knowing that you've got the support of the entire universe. You've got the support of the higher power, that the same one that created you will deliver you to where your desired destination is.
Yeah, but I like that, and I would just say your true inner desires, not what the world desires for you.
Absolutely, I love that too.
Okay. All right. Great to see you, Elisa. We'll talk next week again.
All right.
All right.